Just all to sign the minutes of the previous meeting. Are you happy I'll do that on your behalf?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Thank you. Apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillors David Smith, Ian Roberts.
Okay, so,
And Councillor Longley.
Councillor Longley.
yes, we've got that one, yeah. Okay, thank you. Members' interests. Disclosable interests?
No.
No? Okay, well, don't forget, if you find you've got some during the evening, you can always say it at the top. Party whipping arrangements. Members of the public, that means we don't get together as political parties and decide how we're going to vote in planning. There is one application that's withdrawn tonight. Deferred. Yeah, deferred at the applicant's request, and that's the applicant in Parliament, application in Parliament, 0720. Bit of housekeeping to give you. If the fire alarm bell rings, it should be a fire, so please go out the way you come in, as recently prompt as you can. Please switch your mobile devices off, because the chairman of the council is here, and she collects £10 if it's a noisy sound, £5 if it's a natural one. Okay, so if it goes off, you're going to pay. The proceedings aren't being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes, and then you'll be asked to wind up, and that is the only opportunity for you to speak. So I'm sure you won't interrupt during the rest of the debate. And you don't look like the type that's going to clap, hiss, cheer, boo, stand up and wave your arms, so please don't. And you'll see officers talking, probably while you're talking to speakers, which looks incredibly bad manners. They're trying to find the answers to the points you're making, so the meeting can flow. I think we've covered everything. We'll go straight to the first application then, which is in Daventry, 0228.
Thanks, Chairman. The application property, as you can see, sits just to the west of Daventry and south of the road there. It's a fairly modest property. You can see from the planning history there is a lot of planning history to that site and the adjoining site. Members should only concentrate on what's before them tonight in terms of the application for the conversion of the existing building. As I said, it's a fairly modest, former agricultural stroke equine building. Has been used most recently in connection with the applicant's pursuits of sort of equine agricultural rescue animal sort of facility plus a small caravan site. In carrying out those operations, the applicant has found the need to live on site permanently and is seeking this application to help facilitate that in the interest of the functional needs of the operation there. You'll see the officer who's quite considerable longevity of the site. He's satisfied that with both the financial and functional needs to have somebody on site, and in light of the potential fallback position and the fact that it's a relatively modest proposal, we are recommending the application be approved, Chairman.
Thank you, Eamon. Local member is asked to speak. Councillor Guildford.
Okay. DDC's recommend. Oh, sorry, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Should have said that first. DDC's recommendation for this application is approval. Badby Parish Council, the local voice, disagrees with the recommendation and unanimously objects strongly on a number of planning grounds, which is submitted in its consultation response. So there are grounds for refusal. A representative from Badby Parish Council, I think, is speaking later on these objections. Interestingly, as the Parish Council pointed out at the time to DBC, the original application for the current build were of residential form, inappropriate to the needs of an educational centre, and expressed concern that this would lead in due course to a request to make the property into a residence. And guess what? It has. Is this not incremental development? The parish council has made DDC aware of the concerns regarding development on the site on many occasions. I recognise the difficulties with inspection and enforcement. However, I feel DDC has let the parish down in that it has only made one annual inspection, as it says in the report. In that annual inspection it says there's no bed in the upstairs room, etc., etc. Well, on just an annual inspection, I do not think the data collected is robust to make such a significant decision. Yes, I note this application not only seeks to convert the building to a permanent resident, but extend the build as well by way of a single-storey extension. In the application has stated that the reason for seeking the application is to provide the ability to reside on site to cater for the animals. Does the site not already afford that facility? The applicant states they need the facility to provide proper care for the rescued animals. Does the site mean the care to date has not been proper? The agent advises that a minimum of internal structure alterations are required. Well, surprise, surprise, this only confirms the intention when the build was first erected that it would become a permanent residential facility. The report states that the agent cannot fully demonstrate the agricultural use continued until the 20th March 2013, and there is one factor deeming that she is unable to apply the applicant for a residential change of use. I also note the report makes a lot of references to the fact, and I quote, the agent claims. I would suggest we ask for evidence in light of the history of the site and not approve an application on hearsay. I strongly urge the planning committee to resist the current application. The report quotes policy R1 and advises that any type of residential open countryside should not normally be allowed once the district has fulfilled its 5-year housing requirement, which we have. The planning committee are choosing to exempt this application from that. Can we listen to the local voice, i.e. parish council? They are against this application, yet we choose to make an exemption. I have sat in this chamber many a time hearing people say the county council do not listen to the district and boroughs. On this occasion, can the district not listen to the parish? By making this exemption, we are enabling the application. The report states the applicant reaches the essential need for a rural worker. In light of the history and proven erroneous statements made previously, are taken in conjunction with the fact the animals are already being taken care of adequately, does this not evidence there is not a need? As for the statement, this is preferable to a new build, what is to say a new build would get planning approval on the basis of policy R1? The report states that the building has, if it had been no more than 400 square metres, it would have got automatic approval under permitted rights. This is not a reason to then approve a bigger application. The report also states many of the changes will be internal. I have already signposted you to where the report advises the internal alterations are minimal. The major part of this application is the extension, and in fact it is over 400 square metres, so this statement is incorrect. I could say, will the next application be a conversion of tall trees for an annex, releasing the site itself? This is all assumptions on my part, and I realise the committee cannot take that into account. It is not for DDC, as it says in the report, to determine if tall trees provide sufficient overall accommodation for the site. It is for the applicant to determine this. I therefore strongly urge the committee to listen to the local voice, that of the parish council and their district councillors, and for the robust reasons, planning grounds that have been quoted by the parish council and own officers in some case, policy R1, that this application be refused. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to put you right, although the parish council, Daventry Parish Council are here tonight, they've registered to speak on the second application, but they haven't registered to speak on this one, so they won't be speaking on this one. Councillor Irving-Smith.
No, it's what I was seeking clarification about
Right,
the
okay.
parish speaking.
I understood they would, sorry.
Right, members, your comments please. Councillor James?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to support this application. I've read the planning officer's report, and he's been quite analytical here and looked at all the issues. But the salient points I found were important in the officer's report, that it will result in environmental improvements, it will tidy up this site, and that it will meet the functional needs of the applicant. We need someone there stationed overnight to look after the animals. I don't know anything about goats, but I do know something about chickens. So it will satisfy the applicant's functional needs. And in any event, it seems a little bit mean, bearing in mind that the applicant only narrowly missed out on this being a case for Class 2 consideration. So all in all, balance, I'd like to recommend that the officer's report be accepted.
Thank you. That's a proposal, is it?
Yes, it is.
Right, do you have a second then? Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to speak now, Councillor Chandler, or reserve your right?
I'd like to reserve my right, Chairman.
Okay, just put your hand up as soon as you wish to speak. Councillor Organ.
Yeah, thank you. It's just clarification. I probably know the answer to this, but with regard to the history on how this has developed over the years, and you see this mission creep to eventually getting somewhere which, had you proposed right at the beginning, you never would have got. I take it we can't take that into consideration. Is that correct?
Exactly. Just deal with
Is that the only point?
That was it, sir. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councillor James on this. I mean, I think we do have to listen to the parishes, and I always advocate that. But there's a long speech about why we shouldn't accept this application, but didn't really get to. For me, it didn't really get to another bit. I understand the R1 argument about this, but the fact remains it's there already. It's and I think it does seem a little bit churlish to worry too much about what was the phrase we just heard, mission creep, actually coming into the decision-making process here. I understand people's frustrations with things like that, but we are where we are with it, and I don't see it as any sort of major blemish or causing any sort of difficulties to anybody. So I will be supporting Councillor Jones on this.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Yes, as we know, we cannot look at what happened before. But could I have some clarification, because this person is running a business and have 5 caravans on the side. Can she have 5 caravans on the side and is at the maximum, or can she run a business? Because for me, that she's running a business, and does she has the right to run a business? And secondly, we have a big spiel when we say we can't take into consideration. I think we have to be fair, because suddenly what it says is that unfortunately the owner used to live next door, but now her daughter lives next door, so therefore she has nowhere to live. So if we don't accept the mission creep one way, should we accept her argument? So I think we have to be measured, is what we accept or we don't accept, because frankly, to say that the fact that her daughter lived next door and so now she doesn't have a house and therefore it justifies her to have the new house, I do think somehow, I don't have a particularly good reason, but I do think that's sticking my throat, to say the least.
Thank you. Ayman, your comment.
Well, I mean, yes, there is a business operator. In terms of the caravans, my understanding is that 5 caravans can operate as a licensed site without the need for planning permission. Certainly not on the planning permission, but I'm guessing that there is a licensed site on that. I mean, it's not uncommon for these types of holdings to have a range of businesses operating from the site, and clearly this is what's happening. There's a rescue business, there's an education business, and there's a caravan business, which is encouraged from our policies in terms of rural diversification, etc. The fact is they're operating on the site, and they're seeking, as part of that business, the need to live on the site, which officers judge to be satisfactory.
Could I come back? In the view of the future, if you run a business like that and you rescue animals, you have something that is a bit tidier and you have hygiene and all that. So could I ask Environment Agency to have a look and to see if the license or if it is operating within the law? Because frankly, that doesn't inspire me of going to go and have a little camping holiday in sort of environment like that. I'm sure I will go somewhere else.
Again, through you, Chairman, the members are well advised that you can't stray into other regulations in dealing with planning applications, but I note your comments, we can certainly raise it with environment.
That would be great.
In terms of the site itself, it's not readily visible from the public area. I know there's comments about its visibility from the public footpath. But the site is the site, and you're here to determine an application to convert the building with the extensions that actually increase the size of the building. They're on the same floor plate. That's currently there. That's what you're being asked to determine.
Thank you. Councillor Rees.
Thank you. I feel very undecided about this application. If I lived in Badby and perhaps was a member of the parish council, I can well imagine that I would resent somebody who might have been thought to have whittled their way around some of the regulations, but more because from what we've seen, it's not exactly a beautiful site. Reference is made to how perhaps talks about the untidiness. I would feel there might be environmental improvement if it were made residential. I can't see any grounds for believing that whatsoever. But what I do want to see, I don't think it's appropriate that we should have been shown photographs of people's domestic clutter. If they want to live like that, I often live like that. That is entirely up to them. It is surely not a matter that we needed to have seen at this meeting. And I'd just like to register that I thought that was inappropriate. The only,
Oh, sorry. Carry on.
the only actual question that's going through my mind is the one about the necessity to have somebody actually living on the site. There have been many farms around the area where there is not actually a residential worker living in farms where, you know, in lambing season there might be big needs overnight and everything else. They can find suitable accommodation nearby. And what has changed? If this place has been operating as an animal rescue centre for a number of years, why now is there a special need to have somebody on the site?
Thank you. Eamon.
In terms of photographs, yeah, I hear what the Councillor says. Those photographs were actually taken in the course of investigating the Parish Council's allegations that there was residential use on site. Officers found there was no residential use on site, and there hasn't been any residential occupation on site. It merely shows what was the state of the building as was. There still isn't any residential use on site. This is the applications before you. In terms of the needs, needs changes, etc. as businesses develop. The applicant deems it necessary, and officers agree that it is necessary for somebody now to live on the site. I hear what people say about the history of the site and their frustrations. I understand that, but ultimately you have a planning application before you and must decide that on its merits. You're entitled to come to a different view from officers, and clearly in doing so you need to sort of set out quite clearly what issues you consider are conflicted with and what is the harm in terms of the proposed conversion. It's clear the applicant will be entitled to a challenge or appeal.
Thank you, Eamon. Right.
Can I just ask a question? When someone's got a house and a barn, does the planning system allow that person to give the house to the son or daughter and then claim that they need residential planning permission on the barn because they now no longer have anywhere to live? Is that how the system works?
Well, I think it's through your chairman, as Councillor Chandler has suggested to you, it's got land can be sold, permissions go with the land.
Right.
etc. Clearly this site is subdivided. My understanding is the tall trees, the historical element of the site, has no relevance to the current site that's before you. It's under separate occupation, separate ownership, and what's before you is for the needs of the applicant who doesn't live in tall trees.
Okay, I'm taking that, yes.
Okay. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. Sorry, do you wish to?
Just to emphasise what some of my colleagues have been saying, Chairman, I recognise from some of the pleas to refuse this a certain degree of desperation. That I can see no planning reason why this should be refused as an application for what it is. And just to comment about the necessary residential presence because of animal care. Until very recently, there was somebody living in the next door building, but they no longer live there, so they need somewhere to be, and that's what they're asking for here. It's not going to add a monstrosity to the site in any way, and I'm quite happy to continue to support it, Chairman.
Thank you. Quick one, Councillor Eversworth.
Could I say that it's with a heavy heart that, because I agree with officer that we have no reason, because I cannot say it's completely against our one. I wish I could, but I would thank the officer for the report. But it's really with a heavy heart and I don't like it. I don't see any reason under the new planning regime.
Right, okay. Thank you. Back to where we were. We have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those against? The application is approved, 9 votes to 2. Next is in Woodford, no, I call it Woodford House, but it's Woodford from memory. The application number is 0370.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll refer members to the late representations from the local flood authority of the comments and suggestions they make in respect to additional conditions. Should members be meant to approve the application, those will be added. I also understand that the applicants or representatives of the applicants have circulated a letter to members without the knowledge of officers. I've seen that letter. I don't think that letter actually adds to the debate or raises any new material issues that aren't already covered by the committee report. So I'm happy for members to consider the report that's before you this evening. But it would have been courteous to be copied in any correspondence between applicants and our members in advance of the planning committee. Turning to the site and the application before you, the site benefits from outline planning permission granted under P for residential development with access onto Grants Hill Way, which is a can you just go back? Grants Hill Way, which is an unadopted estate road serving an industrial estate to the northeast. So the principle of development has been accepted, as indeed has the access been accepted. So what's before you is the details of the layout of the site. In terms of the application side, it's roughly triangular, but there is a brideway. Can you just leave it there? Brideway running through the middle of the site, as you can see opposite the junction of Phipps Road. That is part of the Jurassic Way and has been really a source of concern from the parish council and local community to ensure that it's retained. In fairness to the applicants, in pre-application discussions, they agreed that they would respect that wish and have retained the bridleway through the site. That, however, causes problems and concerns from the local highway authority, as you see, who are concerned that they would not adopt Grants Hill Way or indeed the site with the bridleway running through it for the reasons they've stated. That said, the Rights of Way officer at the County Council has also indicated that they have no objections to the development, provided the adequate safeguards are in place to retain the line of the bridleway, signage, surfacing, etc. In all other respects, the proposed development in terms of layout, parking, etc. works and meets our sort of normal standards. The only other issues, just leave it there, please, is with respect to the industrial estate to the east. And in discussions with the environmental health officer, we have the applicants are proposing an acoustic fence down the eastern boundary to mitigate any potential for nuisance from those particular, fairly small scale units. They haven't given rise to any particular concerns, but the acoustic fence would secure further mitigation. So really this boils down to having an acceptable planning layout, and whilst I acknowledge the concerns of the Highway Authority, we don't consider that the need to move the bridle way outweighs the planning merits. If at some future point the applicants wish to seek diversion, then that would be a separate matter for them to pursue with the County Council, and there is already provision on the western side of Grantshill Way for a bridleway which was actually constructed by the owners of the industrial estate some time ago. They previously sought to divert the bridleway, but due to objections from the parish council at the time, that wasn't pursued. But the actual physical provision for a diverted bridleway exists. What we would say is that that doesn't need to be pursued as part of your consideration of the application before you, and would be a matter that the applicants would be free to pursue at some future date. Apart from that, Chairman, nothing else to add.
Thank you, Aaron. Your speaker, Mr. Pearson, is the applicant.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Having listened to the comments made by the officer, I think that there's a strong chance that I'd only be repeating a lot of what the officer has already reported to the meeting. And with that in mind, I'm inclined to just thank you for the opportunity and just say I have nothing further to add over what the officer's already mentioned.
Thank you, sir. Now, we've got a local member, which I should have gone to on the last one, yes. Councillor Frost.
What roadworks and road closures will be necessary if this goes ahead?
I don't know. I'm not a builder. I'm dealing with the end development. But if they need to tie into existing services, etc., then that would be a matter for them and the Highway Authority, the various statutory undertakers who need to service the site. What you as the planning committee are concerned with is the end development in terms of the proposal. That layout is going to be accessed off Grantshill Way, which you can see from the photographs is a fully constructed. Just go back. Next one. Yeah, that's Grantshill Way, which is it's a fully constructed industrial estate road. It isn't adopted by the Highway Authority. If the owners of the industrial estate choose to seek adoption from the Highway Authority, and the Highway Authority wanted certain works to be done, then they would have to do that. Equally, if Lagan Homes wish to have their estate adopted, then they may well be required to do certain works which may involve seeking a diversion of the bridleway.
The reason I ask is that development that prompted the question, and if Chairman, I'm allowed to. The question put to me by local residents, it's only like a couple of small sentences, if I can just read it out. It says, during the building of the Grantshill development, was it something called Woodford Meadows, he says that Byfield Road was closed for about 6 months when it was planned to be 6 weeks, while drains were upgraded and it was resurfaced multiple times and so on. He says this caused tremendous disruption in the village as public buses, school buses, lorries and the like had to be routed through the narrow estate roads in Hinton. So if it's going to, I guess I hear what you're saying, you shouldn't let this cloud your judgment, but if the building of it is going to cause an absolute nightmare for the people living there, it's hard not to let that skew your judgment, isn't it?
Again, all I can say is that as part of the outline permission, the inspector deemed it necessary to impose a construction management plan, but that is dealing with planning issues such as development on site. If there are necessary off-site works, that are required to connect the site to infrastructure, then those have to be done with, but they sit out with the planning considerations. Construction management plan is an attempt to manage the on-site works, etc. What happens within the highway is a matter for the highway authority in terms of road closures and diversions, etc., in order to accommodate that development. I accept, yes, it's frustrating. I accept, yes, it's a complete and utter inconvenience, but that is not a matter that sits within the considerations of the planning committee.
Councillor Griffin, who is not on the committee but is also a local member.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Eamon has actually said most of what I was going to say, but the parish council and local people do feel very strongly about the bridle way, that it should be retained and not diverted, and I see the officer has made a very sensible discussion on this issue. For information, it's part of the Jurassic Way. We used to have timber finger posts marking this. It's also known as the Red Road because it serviced a brickworks and the clay coloured the road. But the developer is interested in supplying these finger posts. He understands how local feeling is very strong about this. People come to the village who are walking the Jurassic Way and they look for it. The Jurassic Way goes across the Byfield Road and down the Cinder Path, and we also used to have these posts marking it down the Cinder Path. And drovers used to take their animals down that way. It went from Stamford down to Banbury, so you will understand it is a very important, ancient, historic bridle way, and I do hope that it won't have to be diverted and it can remain a very important historical, physical presence in our village. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Griffin. Councillor Organ.
Yeah, thank you. This is again important. I've worked out that 10 of those 37 houses will be affordable, which is, much needed in our district. My only issue is over the bridle way. I just want some clarity, is that highways say it's not legal for horses to be on footpaths. Now, years ago, in a previous life, I remember bridle ways being a highway and the road traffic law, etc. Can I confirm, I don't know whether conditions 7 and 8 cover that, but presumably that has been resolved and there will be, everything will be according to the law, because if it is illegal for horses to use, to go on footpaths, etc., then that would indicate that an offence could be committed. So presumably has that issue now been all sorted and there will be no illegal use of horses on footpaths as a result of the correspondence between the district and the developers?
I think that's what you're being asked to determine. The bridle way stays as is.
Right.
Becomes part of the development. As I understand the highway authority's concerns, the highway authority will not formally adopt the layout of the bridle way as it currently is. So in other words, as I understand, for the highway authority to adopt this layout before that bridle way will become a footpath, and the right to use the bridle way will be diverted to the western side of Grassel Way. So the layout before you keeps the bridle way. It will go through the middle of the site. Yes, there will be a potential for inconvenience for people living on there because they will have a bridle way through it. But the rights of way officer of the county council has not raised any objections to the development.
Right.
Subject to the conditions.
So the question is, if you put a horse down there, which you can down a bridle way, that they wouldn't be able to be prosecuted for going on the footpath.
No, because it wouldn't be a footpath. It's still a bridle way.
All right. So this is all being sorted.
Well, that's the planning permission that's being before you tonight. at some future date, Lagan Homes could decide to seek formal adoption from the Highway Authority, in which case, if they succeeded in getting formal adoption, the bridleway may need to be diverted. Now that would be a separate process, in which case the bridleway that's on this drawing would become a footpath.
And of course the idea,
And horse riders would obviously use the diverted bridleway.
but as it stands, it is a bridleway, a major bridleway until
That's
some
the
sort of-
proposal that's currently before
Okay.
members. Lagan Homes want to keep that bridleway through their development.
Nice to see horses going up through the centre of the estate.
It'd be interesting.
Councillor Vincent.
Yes, just a little thing, page 53. We have a library provision, and as you know, at the moment, with all what's going on at county, could we have it in such a way that it is the county council 53, so it's not the same spelling application? Am I on another one? It's the one after that. It's page 53. I thought I was on foot.
We're only on page 37 at the end of this.
Oh, sorry, I was on the other. So otherwise, sorry.
Okay, don't worry.
Sorry, so I go, could I propose that we go with officer advice and we accept the planning application?
Okay, you have a second instantly in front of you. Councillor Mann, you wish to speak now?
Yes, I wanted to ask a question, please, if I may. On page 35, condition 1, there are lots of asterisks instead of document references and dates. Are we supposed to just expect those to be completed satisfactorily?
My fault, Chairman, that that's the drawings that are before you, which are these drawings. I mean, unfortunately, in preparing the committee, we were getting amendments, etc., so it's not always possible to list those drawings. I should have put local representations, but it's the layout drawings that you have before you.
Okay.
The conditions will show the numbered drawings.
Councillor Ritchie.
We're proceeding in order. I wanted to ask about condition 2. Condition 2 talks about parking. It talks about the garages and parking shall not thereafter be used for any purposes other than the garaging parking for private motor vehicles. Now I'm happy with that, but does that I suppose mean you cannot park a commercial motor vehicle, that you can't park a caravan, that you might get off with parking a mobile home? I'd just be interested to know just precisely what that means. If it means where I go, it means I would welcome it.
That kind of detail is usually in the deed when you buy a property, and you'll find them pretty standard everywhere, anything that's been built in the last 50 years. So, yeah, with the parking of commercial vehicles and all that stuff. All this means is their parking areas and garages right now. There's nothing to stop somebody coming forward later to ask for a change. And in practice, if somebody did park a commercial vehicle or a caravan, whether we assess there's any harm to that, either through environment health or through planning, would be a case on its own merits actually, because you couldn't unreasonably stop somebody trading just because they're parking, they have a small van on their drive rather than a car. So that is what it means, but I don't think any member should go away with the idea that that means in practice, that means that activity is forever outlawed, full stop, because that isn't the case.
Exactly, I understand that it's there as a condition, and therefore it does apply. I mean, we're being asked to, we're being asked to vote on an application that includes that, that condition. I have a concern that probably over the course of history there have been loads of applications that have said something similar, but they've never actually been followed up and they have never been enforced. I'm just concerned that that if that is there, we actually take that seriously. The wording in this application seems slightly stronger, for example, than the equivalent condition on the next application that we're going to look at. And I was just interested in why that difference was there.
Well, it's there. Clearly, if members aren't happy with the condition, you can choose to take it off if you wish to. What's before you is a residential development. Residential development is served by parking spaces. Parking spaces equate to normal cars, etc. When somebody buys a property, people are entitled to use their property as they see fit. Covenants, etc., are not enforced by the planning authority. That's a matter for whoever sells the site. In terms of the planning condition is there to retain the parking spaces and the garaging for those purposes. Should somebody wish to use it for alternative purposes, then we would reserve the right to enforce that condition. That would be an application to do something other than use it for parking. For example, converting a garage to a bedroom or something like that. And that would come before committee, or would come before the council certainly. And we would deal with that on its merits because of that condition. If the applicants aren't happy with the condition, they can lodge an appeal against that condition on the basis that they consider that condition to be unreasonable, unnecessary, unenforceable, etc. We cannot predict how an individual house owner will use their house or their parking spaces in the future. You are being asked to determine the application for you with the conditions that are attached.
Chuck, if I could just respond to that. I'm happy with a condition. I would be even happier if the condition was more explicit and if it was stronger. But if the condition is there, I'd like there to be some clarity. If we're saying, well, look, we can't, it's nothing to do with us as a planning committee, then what is it there for? I accept that there may be, if it is a covenant, as been told, it may be something that has got to be enforced, if people want to enforce it in a different way. But if we're actually saying that it is there as part of what we agree, then surely we would expect that we're in a position to enforce it. And if we're not going to enforce it, although I would like to have it there, what on earth is it doing there?
Through you, Chairman, the purpose of the condition is that this forms an acceptable layout as of tonight. The purpose of the condition that's at a future date. If an individual wanted to build a kind of development, which may require planning permission, that would provide you with the ability to control that and assess that on its merits. You may decide that development resulting in the loss of car parking spaces is acceptable. That is for you to control at some future date. People may choose not to ignore the conditions, in which case, if it comes before the council, we would investigate and decide whether it's expedient on planning grounds to enforce the condition. As we sit here tonight, we consider that this development before you is served by adequate parking provision, garage provision, etc. We consider it necessary to impose that condition to safeguard those parking spaces. But how that will change in the future will be a matter for us to investigate. Should there be a breach of planning conditions be reported to the council, or should somebody choose to submit an application to the council to vary that condition to enable them to do something other than park the car in the garage or park on the drive? Simple as.
Okay. Any more questions? Any more comments?
We don't have a seconder yet.
Sorry?
Councillor Madden.
He did. I thought you just asked a question.
Right, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against? That's a full house. Thank you. The application is approved. The next application is in Abbey North and it's 0388.
Thanks, Chairman. The application before committee is a full application, unlike the previous one, which was a matter application for residential development. It comprises of 90% affordable housing, 10% market housing, and comprises a layout set out in the drawings. Littlemore, for those who know it, is an existing residential estate. It has been subject to previous applications that have seen the development of it, and this is one of the last remaining sites to be developed. The report sets out the main considerations in terms of high rates, design, open space, and the need for Section 106 agreements. Officers have considered representation received in respect of the various statutory constitutions, but overall just proposed to be acceptable on planning grounds. And the recommendation is set out subject to some further minor tweaks and the completion of Section 106 agreement that the application be approved, Chairman.
Thank you, Ian. Two speakers, Mrs Randall, representing the Town Council.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As a Town Council opposed this application, serious concerns with parking. Parking on the whole of that estate is pretty horrendous. There's only one way in and one way out. I know there's been lots of discussions on having another access road out onto the industrial estate, but we really feel that this needs to be pushed forward just to ease the congestion. Anybody who's up there around about 8 o'clock, people travelling to work, it is pretty horrendous. Cars are parked all along the edge and up on the pavements because there already isn't enough parking provision. And looking at this new application, it's tandem parking. So again, it's going to be pushed out onto pavements and cause even further congestion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr Randall. Mr Lomas, who's the agent.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you tonight. I think as your office has already identified, this is a scheme for about 59 houses, most of which are going to be for social housing purposes. We are looking at 6 market houses. The rest will be a mixed tenure of houses for rent, houses for part-sale and intermediate housing. I think that's a very positive step to actually address many of the housing needs within the Daventry area. I think it's something that should be welcomed in policy terms. So far as actual principle is concerned, clearly this site has been long established. It's been in the local plan for over 10 years as a housing site, and this, as your officer said, is one of the last parts that's to come forward and be developed. Fortunately, it is being developed with a scheme which will meet many important aspirations in your local plan and in your court support strategy. So far as the issue of car parking has been raised, and I take the point from the Town Council, this scheme cannot in its own right provide an extra link into the industrial estate. It's very much a self-contained site, and the site itself has been designed in such a way as to keep traffic speeds low, because if you've got kids in the area, you want to make sure vehicles are travelling very, very low speeds. Equally, there's adequate car parking provided on the site to meet all the aspirations and certainly the policy compliance requirements of each of the houses for this particular area. Look very carefully at the overall site in terms of its design and layout. Certainly we've protected things through the hedgerows, the trees, and the site also includes areas of local areas of play which actually not only serve this site but also help serve the rest of the Middlemore estate in terms of making sure that the access to the play areas are within the requisite sort of travel distances, so all kids from all areas can go and actually use these places. So far as other issues are concerned, certainly matters of noise related to the industrial estate, that should be absolutely fine. It's actually further away from the industrial areas than some of the other housing in the locality. That shouldn't cause us a problem. And the applicant is certainly willing to, subject to the correct wording, which we're still in negotiations with the council over the Section 106 and the SIL requirements. So obviously there's a commitment towards that, which will actually provide funding for education, further open space libraries and various public transport requirements. So overall, I'm a firm believer that this scheme is very much in accordance with your policies. It makes a very sort of important social requirement in terms of delivering social housing. And equally, for those of you familiar with the National Planning Policy Framework, which has just been issued in July, then clearly providing a mixture and a range of tenure is very much compliant with national planning policy objectives. So, just I'd like to say thank you for your officers for the time during this process. It's been a very cooperative discussion and negotiation process. I think we've come with a good scheme which will be delivered by Future's housing in due course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We've got 2 local members on the committee, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor James. Councillor Ritchie, you're on.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this application. That doesn't mean to say, however, that I actually support it in its present form. I think everybody in Middlemore accepts that there is going to be building in this site. I don't think that is a particular issue. There are many who think it would be nice if part of it had been kept for a recreation area, but I know that that is not on the agenda. It does mean that once this site, which is the last open space that is available in Middlemore, has been built over, Middlemore will be the only estate in the middle of Daventry that doesn't have a flat grassed area for teenagers to play football on. But you can think about that when you have your sports awards next week, or whenever it takes place. However, if it is going to be there, I've got 3 areas in which I have got reservations. Let me deal with the 2 that are perhaps of lesser importance first. I mean, the first one, I welcome the fact that this is an application that is predominantly affordable housing. That is very much needed. I think it's unfortunate that if people are building housing that is going to be affordable, costs have got to be cut, and it always looks as if one of the biggest cuts goes in architects' fees. It is a little bit depressing to see some of the diagrams that are there that we've seen on the screen tonight, that are there amongst the documents that are available to us with the application. Houses that look like boxes, or flats that look like factories. There is a reference on page 49 for the guidance, the Middlemore Development Brief, requiring creative frontages. Well, where are the creative frontages? Well, my hope would at least be that there could be a condition, if this application is going to go through, there should be a condition that there is a requirement on the developers to consult and reach agreement with the district council on how they are going to use colour to make this site look just a little bit more distinctive, a little bit more like a place that people would actually like to live, rather than one that they only live in because it is affordable. I just feel that the diagrams of the houses don't inspire me in the slightest. I move on to hedgerows. Now, I think that the hedgerows around about Middlemore are particularly important. They're the only bit of nature that is left from what relatively recently was open agricultural country. At our last planning committee meeting, we effectively get rid of hedgerows over the other side of the country park. I feel that here it is important. It is what makes Middlemore distinctive. The fact that you have got that link back to to a farm and everything else. You have got the natural habitat that's down around by the reservoir. I'm worried that in the small print, unfortunately it's so small I can't actually read it at the moment, but the small print and the diagrams that go with what is going to happen to the surrounding hedgerows. Somebody may correct me if I haven't quite got this right, because it's minuscule on the paper that is in front of me. But there is a plan that the hedgerows would be cut in height and in width as necessary, with the agreement of the district council. Now, I find it slightly ironic that I have spent a year getting nowhere at all in trying to get Futures Housing to cut down a hedge in the headlands that's now at the height of a 2-storey house, and nobody will deal with. And here, an application from Futures Housing that is suggesting that these hedgerows that should be retained are going to be cut in size. I accept that there might be occasions where it is necessary to do something, but I would like something added to the conditions to say that while, yes, the district council's permission will be needed for restricting the height or width of the surrounding hedgerow, but there will be a presumption that that permission will only be given if there are exceptional reasons that make it necessary. Now, the big issue, I think, is parking and traffic. Now, it may be that within the, within the site, the provision of parking places, I will not argue that it is, that it is sufficient, but neither will I argue that it is insufficient. I accept it as it is. But the entrance to this site is in a roundabout that will be directly opposite the retirement village that got planning permission last year. That will be a much bigger, it will be a sort of massive concentration of people. And you may recall that it was almost exactly a year ago that we considered the planning application for that retirement village in the care home. And we had a long, long argument about parking, about the fact that the retirement village was going to provide, I think, less than half of the parking places that a normal calculation from the county council would have suggested that they should provide. And we accepted that after long discussion the arguments about the nature of the residents who would be there and what the parking would be needed. But at the end of that discussion, we had a vote and an amendment to a condition, and that was that rather than simply saying that under the sections 106 obligations, rather than just the contributions to the provisions of traffic control will be there, but the provisions of traffic control to prevent and accommodate overspill parking. We added the and accommodate overspill parking on Farnborough Drive, addition to the application site. Now, if we go ahead and fill that entire site with a housing estate, where on earth can we accommodate any further parking? Now, if you just see where the arrow is on the map at the moment, I was there last night because I often will park there at one of the few places where you can walk a dog off the leader for a length at night is down the railway path. I was around there last night. That section of Farnborough Drive, there was not a single parking place which was there. There is the roundabout that is being prepared for one of the entrances, further up the other entrance, that would be, well, the entrance to the site and the entrance to what will be the retirement hall. Both of these entrances, each entrance was filled with cars in them. So there was already a parking issue as it stands. Now this clearly is going to make the situation one hell of a lot worse. And we're blocking it off so that there's no space where if there is any possibility of having that accommodation that we spoke of. But now, a separate concern. We are putting a lot of accommodation and a lot of cars at that end of Middlemore. We still have it that we only have a single lane road that goes through to the heartlands. A single lane road that has got no entry signs up, that everybody knows that the no entry signs are not official and therefore that they can be ignored. So you will have all the traffic from the site as well as from the residential village. The only way out is through all the twists and turns of Farnborough Drive until that entrance, until that exit is made larger. And I would like to see that we have some sort of condition to say that we are not going to get involved in trying to start construction work here until that entrance has been expanded, so that all the construction traffic, so the construction traffic for the retirement home as well, can only come through Heartlands and not through the rest of the estate. And I just feel that unless we have a condition that protects the people in the rest of Middlemore from construction traffic coming backwards and forwards, with this and the other side, then I think it would be intolerable.
Thank you. Do you want to comment on that, Eamon, the construction traffic piece, or do you want to leave it and do everything together?
I don't know if I'm being asked to comment on this. Sorry, Chairman. The application is what was before committee. The application that was determined last year was what was before committee. If members feel that there's a need to do something extra over and above what officers were recommending, then members are perfectly entitled to take that view. Suffice it to say, the Highway Authority have not objected to the application on the grounds of lack of parking. They have raised concerns about internally within the site creating a through road set out in the representations. But again, like the Woodford Halswell, that's a potentially an issue for adoption should the applicants choose to seek the land before they adopt it at some future date. But yeah, I mean, members had a good debate last year for that application. They understood the issues, and no doubt members will understand the issues that are being put to them, and perfectly entitled to come to whatever views over and above the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I welcome this application. It's 59, unusually 59 affordable dwellings, and hopefully those who keep on buying up the cheaper homes for buy to let are going to be thwarted on this one, so I do welcome it. I know the site, I know Middlemore, and I know its historic problems about parking. That was a mistake made at that time, and it's of no real concern to this application here. I've read this report thoroughly, and I cannot find any technical grounds on which one could oppose it, or really seek to amend it in any way. So I'd be quite prepared to propose that office advice be accepted and that we approve this application.
Do you have a second? I don't know who was first. Councillor Irving Swift, I think, was by a microsecond. Do you wish to say anything or reserve your right?
No, I would like to say something, and now I am on the right application, sorry for last time. On page 53, it's about the section 106, and as Northampton County Council is in the news, I would like to make sure that those 33,189 contribution for the library will be stayed in Daventry for the benefit of the applicant. Will that be possible or not?
Maria?
Yes, through you, Chairman, we go to lengths to, before any money is released, if the money comes through DDC, we go to great lengths to make sure it is going to the right person, organisation, to deliver the right purpose. So ordinarily, if it was coming through DDC, we would find out what they're spending it on, and we'd basically get an invoice and pay it. So we give you as much assurance as we can.
So what I would like to see, it's a contribution for library provision, and that could be also community library outside of NCC ownership, if that is possible.
Which depends on the word.
Yes,
whatever.
yes.
It should reasonably refer to, provision in the town if there's development in the town.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I'm very happy with that addition.
Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Middlemore is Middlemore. It's got horrendous parking problems, historical parking problems, and pretty much I don't think we can do a great deal about it, although I'm a little bit sympathetic with Councillor Ritchie and him pointing out that we were talking about making some sort of provision regarding other development. Obviously, this development is not the other development. They are two separate items. But you know, the people that live there and bought houses there, that estate is blighted by the terrible transport through it and around it. It would be nice if we could possibly do something to make it a better place for people to live. But I just don't know how we're going to do that, because we are where we are. But I really, really would like to see some further provision on those across those two sites, some accommodation between the two that actually makes it a little bit better for everyone. I mean, just as for instance, that's an old Google Earth picture as well. You've got to remember there's also a factory unit down the bottom of the house build where the arrow is now. That's already built on there. So yes, you haven't actually got anywhere down that part to park on before anyone thinks there's a spare field, because it's not. And the other one is also allocated. But I do think that road where the arrow has just jumped from, where the new factory unit is, there's been loads of controversy about this, as Councillor Ritchie said. That is a single lane road. There is not enough room for 2 vehicles to pass. It gets blocked, particularly if they're larger. It's supposed to be for buses only. Certainly if a bus goes down there, nothing can get back up there. And it backs up onto that residential part above the footpath. And really, with those 2 sites being developed, that road needs sorting out before anything else is built. It will be an absolute nightmare for everybody. It's congested. You've got a main walkway there as well, which actually takes you up into open countryside down the side of the old railway and back into the green route along the top of the site. It runs through from the railway line, so it's all pedestrians. You've got dog walkers, cyclists, children walking to school and everything. And that stretch of road is absolutely terrible and is totally inadequate.
£10, Mrs. Reynolds.
Just to interrupt you, that is definitely a £10 charity. I know how much you like the Chairman charity. Thank you.
Oh, God.
Oh, it was
Through you, Chairman, it's my understanding that as soon as because the development is taking a little longer than hoped, but this factory will soon be finished, and when that building on this factory site is finished, works need to be done to the roadworks here. It is my understanding that when those works are done, that will become a 2-way traffic road. But I will get some confirmation of that from my colleagues in the business team.
I think it's imperative, right, that it is within.
I believe it's in the programme, but I will get that.
But nothing should happen until, it's all about saying it might happen or it will happen. You never know what that's going to be. It may be in the programme. The programme may be abandoned. Things do get abandoned.
If you recall, the planning permission for the factory here, Heartlands, was that Heartlands 7?
Again, through you, Chairman, if you recall, that building was set back after members refused permission initially. Also, there was a considerable debate at the time about the need to provide a footpath down that side of the road, which members eventually approved the application after the building was moved back to provide sufficient road space for a footpath along that side of the road. I don't recall conversations in respect of widening the road or whatever, but I mean, whatever happens to the road, if it is going to be adopted by the highway authority, whatever, that remains within the control of the district council to decide to make those improvements. Initially, as part of Middlemore, the intention was that road was only going to be for buses and not to provide a through road for residential, and that's why it was built as a narrow road. I think the original intention was to have some sort of controlled gate there, but it is what it is. But what is before you tonight is something separate, which is an application before you. We acknowledge the concerns. We're not blind to those concerns. I'm sure through the corporate manager that those will be investigated and pursued to reflect your concerns as expressed tonight. But ultimately, you're being asked to determine this application on planning merits.
Chair, just on that. And this is what concerns me. It's all very well things being in the programme and being talked about, but there's nothing in place at the moment. And there are opportunities here to actually make that actually happen. I.e., before anything can be done, then that road has to be improved. That could be part of the process. Also, some actual planning gains, some S106 money or SIL money should be diverted towards that road being improved by hook or by crook. And I think that should be part of this planning application.
through you, Chairman, it's a private road in the ownership of the council. I have been in meetings where it has been discussed that that road is going to be 2-lane. It's away from the applications like being discussed tonight, so it isn't something that you can say conditional. It's out of the application side.
It's not out of S106 provision.
But why would you be asking that the district council should be getting section 106 money from that site? It's not relevant to that.
Well, we put money into a bypass, but still money into a bypass, so it's as relevant as that, isn't it? I mean, sorry, I'm not arguing with officers. I'm not going to argue with you on this. I'm talking to my fellow councillors here, just on the provision of the road, on the road network, on what is a very, very congested site. That road gets used more and more and more. You already see it every single morning.
It's a DDC road, and I'm committed to getting.
You already get lorries parked up on that road. It is congested. There are traffic lights over there. There's an absolute nightmare. It's things all over the place. It is.
To be fair, Councillor Wesley, I don't think the officer can say much more.
Well, no,
She's committed to.
I'm talking to my fellow councillors.
The officer is committed to coming back and telling you what the position will be on that road. And she's saying, well, she said. Well, we move on. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to look at the crime prevention, which we seem to have skipped over. The last sentence, desire to provide a layout where the car does not dominate the street scene has resulted in a layout which provides numerous opportunities for crime. Also, there's other mentions of that later on, above that as well, where it says the layout definitely does not comply with our guidance. They want some plots altering and things like that. I would prefer it if we can do this, if the applicant can come back with a revised layout of this site.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you,
Parker.
Chair.
I mean, we've got a proposal, haven't we, already? We've got,
Proposed Councillor Jones.
yes, we've got a proposal, and it's been seconded, the application be approved. So, are you making an amendment or what?
I'd like to make it that as an amendment. Yes, please, Chair.
Do you have a seconder for that?
As a proposer, can I ask that in amendment with agreement with the planning officer that the applicant engage a bit more for maybe resolve the problem of that the police say, because I'm sure there is a solution.
I'm advised that the proposal could be that along with the 106, they could discuss those details, the layout details, with the applicant and get some improvement to what the committee are talking about.
To overcome the crime rises and concerns. Yes, we could.
No.
That's what we're talking about.
Again, through you, Chairman, I mean, the crime prevention design measures comments are there. Clearly, officers have weighed those in the balance, and you can come to view. You're entitled to give greater weight to the crime prevention design measure. It may well be that the changes to the layout, etc., may not address all of those concerns, and sometimes with these types of developments, a balance has to be struck in terms of satisfying or addressing as many of the concerns raised by the various parties. So I'm not going to suggest that, oh yes, we'll address all the crime prevention design advisors' comments. But yeah, perfectly entitled to say, take these into serious account and amend the layout as best you can, whilst you're in negotiations on 106.
I would go back then to the original proposal that the application be approved. Are you willing to incorporate that subject to negotiations with the applicant for a better layout that we're talking about for the crime part of it, along with the 106 agreement? Are you happy to?
No.
You're not happy?
No, Chairman.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I
have to ask you that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have in mind that this is a precise layout from what was supposed to be. I'm not sure of that, but I thought it had been.
He's got a secondary second.
And
Okay. Do you have a seconder for your proposal?
Yes.
Councillor Organ. Right.
Yeah,
Do you wish to
just,
speak on?
sorry, yeah, just on that point, and the point is well raised and well articulated. Is has that been revised since this was? And if so, did we get an update from the
Well, I can advise members that
crime prevention
I had a conversation with the crime prevention design advisor this afternoon, and her views remain the same based on that letter.
based on that?
I mean, she has got concerns, but accepts that not all of her concerns will be addressed, but equally there are sufficient concerns about the layout as it currently stands. We would have to negotiate that. As I said, planning officers have taken one view in terms of having regard to those comments and weighing them in the balance. Members are entitled to come to an alternative view and say, no, we want crime prevention measures to be properly looked at and addressed. But as I say, there will still potentially need to be a balance.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, can I just develop that? I think he's perfectly correct on that. But what frustrates me a little bit is that we have had crime prevention design advisors for a season now. I'm just surprised that more cognizance isn't taken of their views when we're putting up designs to try to make our communities safer and more target hardened. Because the other option is to put a big fence around the whole place and secure it and have gated communities. We don't want that. We want clever designs so that we actually prevent or deter crime happening. And we don't want this to become a bit of a sinkhole estate where people come here specifically to commit crime because the place is designed to make it an easy target for them.
Yeah, through you, Chairman. I think if I remember correctly in the report, the applicant has achieved a certain design our crime standard, silver level, and the crime design consultant is saying, the police's representative is saying she prefers to do better. The planning case officer is saying, well, silver is good to achieve. I mean, we can explore to see if we can get better, that's the point, but whether that's achievable.
But if we get it right now, think about the benefits going forward for that community. So I think it's worth pursuing as much as we can, getting the right balance to making sure that is better designed, so it makes it a safer community for the people in it.
Right, we're talking on the amendment there. Councillor Ritchie?
Chair, I'm quite relaxed about the design. I'm rather frustrated that we had a very similar discussion back last year discussing the development on the other side of the road. And it strikes me that the obvious thing to do here is to have CCTV. You have got an estate that has got one entrance at one end and one at the other end. You can cover things with the whole estate by simply introducing CCTV. You know, okay, it doesn't cover the guys who jump over walls and run across fields.
With respect to you, Councillor, could we talk to the amendment rather what
I'm
you would
giving-
like it to be?
Chair,
I
I'm giving
accept
a
that.
reason so why I feel that I'm not moved to support the amendment. Because I feel there are probably better ways of achieving the same thing.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to ask for a vote on the amendment then. The amendment is that the application be deferred until discussions take place with the applicant, along with the 106, to come back with a better layout. Is that correct or not?
Specific to crime prevention.
Okay. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Those against? 4. So that wins the amendment.
Do we have to do the other vote? Do the other vote, we've got a position to approve.
You're okay with it because it's going to the effect of that other thing
Okay. So the application is deferred then until we go back to the applicant to try and get a better layout. At the same time discussing the 106. Agreed? That's right. Councillor Swift?
Chairman, if you agree with the applicant and you have the gold, silver, the gold thing, do we need to go back in front of planning?
Well, that would be a different vote, to be fair. You would be voting to approve subject to achieving an improved standard. But you just voted on deferring it, so I don't think we can go back again on that, can we? If you wanted to be really clear that you've accepted the principle of the development,
Yes.
and you only have that remain, that's a different question.
Yes. Yeah, you're deferring this.
No. That is.
If you
Okay,
wanted
you
to-
all understand that, do you?
No.
No.
Right, Maria, can you put it?
Well,
to
perhaps,
the
yes, perhaps Matthew could more succinctly describe that.
Let's hope I'm giving you some clarity here. You've decided to defer making a decision.
On this application, full stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have authorised us to commence negotiations in respect of a 106 to cover those aspects which need to be covered. The 106 and the consent and the decision will no doubt come back to you. It may well be that when they come back to you, the 106 will be all but negotiated. All we have to do is execute it. But one way or the other, you have not crossed any Rubicons tonight. You've made a decision to defer. So when this matter comes back to you, no matter what has happened, negotiations between officers and applicant in the meantime, you will always then be in the position to say no. If that's what you
That's-
Do you understand that?
Having said that, though, the only reason you've given the full deferral is to renegotiate on the crime design points.
Crime design, yes.
So it wouldn't
You didn't
reasonably
say.
to come back later with any other reasons to defer or refuse.
Will be
That's not
wrong.
true.
So
No,
that
that
is
is
a
what-
clarification I
that's what-
wanted
Yeah,
to ask.
okay. Councillor?
That doesn't leave me feeling happy about this. Because we haven't actually got around to taking a vote on, whether we feel that from traffic point of view, that this application is satisfactory.
Well,
I
I've
feel
got a
that-
proposal for that.
Yes, but if we simply say that we're deferring it, we're not allowing this committee to actually have a vote on whether there is the need for another condition or a 106 agreement or something that addresses traffic. And it is sort of simply sweeping that decision away from us.
Hold on a second.
Road. So by deferring it,
Well, wait till that finishes.
I've been told by officers.
Wait till we get to position one, whether we can.
And it is all about the little more people are coming here and asking questions.
but by deferring it, we'll get more information when the board before us. Yeah, we will.
Must be true. Councillor Richard, so what was the bit of a as a self-contained estate, but I appreciate the so I think that's what we've before we've had estates where parking has been untenanted, so maybe
This is so there's no point sort of doing it, there's something that is better than that. And I think that's supporting those things that
You'll be long.
Then see the two of those.
Okay, should we tell them that?
In 18 months' time,
Well, as long as you say it's strong enough. Okay, finish talking. Over to you.
So,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, repeat what I've said. There was a motion on the table to approve. There was a second motion as an amendment to defer. Now, when you come back, you will have that motion to approve still on the table. The reason you deferred, which will go into the minutes, is because you were unhappy with the layout.
yeah.
Yep.
That is the message that will be taken back to the applicant.
Right, in relation to crime.
Yeah.
Yes.
That and that is what the applicant will focus on. If when the matter comes back to you, the motion to approve is lost, and there is subsequently a motion to refuse, and that motion to refuse is based on anything other than a poor layout, then I think you are, as a matter of law, I can't say you cannot come to that decision, but I think we've got to say that in those circumstances, I can see what would happen on an appeal. You've got an applicant who will come along and say, well, look, the local authority are 1 minute happy with it, next minute aren't, and are just blowing hot and cold. So you are going to be exposed to costs on that for unreasonable behaviour. So members have got to be clear tonight, if you are voting for the deferral, although as a matter of law you have not made any other decisions on the application, the practical effect of this is that you are effectively saying to the applicant that we are only unhappy with one particular aspect. Now I appreciate layout may be subdivided into lots of other sort of sub-aspects, but that is essentially the reason why you are deferring this. So if members are not happy with that situation, then I think quite frankly either don't defer it and vote on it, and if the vote is to refuse, we'll move on that, or alternatively, if you vote for the deferral, you must appreciate what the consequences of that are. You are to a certain extent cutting off some of your avenues. Don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily. It's quite right that you should ask applicants to concentrate on what is the most important aspects. You've got to make sure that they really are your most important aspects, and you're not going to come back later and say, well, there's something else that's worrying us.
Just to say, are you happy with the, now you've heard the complete explanation, are you happy the way the vote has gone or not?
Yes.
Yes.
You're all happy?
No. Should we vote? We're happy.
Or should we defer voting?
You've had the vote.
It doesn't matter whether we're happy, we've had the vote.
Well, I'm going to take the vote again after you hear an explanation. The same people will vote the same way, I would expect, unless hearing the information has changed somebody's mind. So, sorry, you're putting your hands up. We've got to go for the... We haven't got to go for the vote. We're going to talk.
Can I say something, because the lawyer explanation was very, very good. So now, it's why I asked the question. Basically, with all the debate, if there is an appeal, the whole debate we had, and when we voted, it's about the question of the crime and the police. So the layout, and at the moment it's silver, and what we should have to acquire, it's gold. So now we have decided that, will it be appropriate to maybe simplify the process, because the applicant is in the room, he has heard all our comments, and I am not sure that nowadays applicant will not listen to what was said at the planning committee and delegate to our officer to do that and see with the applicant and say the planning will be granted providing we have a gold.
I tried that one earlier on, but another one came in,
Yeah.
I'm afraid, so, and you voted for the other one. Just to be 1,000% sure, the committee knows after the two explanations where we're going. We had a proposal to defer the application until we had negotiated with the applicant for a better layout crime-wise on the thing, and to come back perhaps with a 106, mostly negotiated. All those in favour of that, can you please show again?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6.
Right, so that's altered.
Yeah.
Right, those against that, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
So somebody's abstained.
So we've gone. Can you show again?
Yeah. If it's helpful, I have abstained.
You've abstained,
Yeah.
right?
And I would like my abstention noted in the minutes,
No,
because I
that
feel
can
it's the
be.
effective process.
So the effect of the vote is exactly the same again. It's 6-4 plus 1.
And members on the second time they voted on that deferral have done so on in the very certain, in a certain position of what they've deferred for.
Okay.
Very specific.
Right. Councillor?
We have been told, I believe, from officers that therefore this is going to come back before us, and if the applicant has changed the design in such a way as to get a gold standard in terms of...
Or a better standard.
Or a better standard in terms of...
Or no
crime
objections
prevention,
from the committee.
that we are therefore obliged to accept this. So shouldn't we therefore, before we move on to
No,
next...
we weren't told we were obliged to. We were
virtually.
told that if we didn't,
Yes.
if we didn't accept it,
might-
and we gave other reasons,
It might-
it might be costly.
Well, it might be seen as unreasonable if we had to.
Unreasonable.
Yes, okay, I've understood that, and thank you for the clarification. So before we move on to the next item on the agenda, should we not be discussing whether there is any other condition as well as...
No, because we've already done it.
Once you defer the item is no longer
That's it.
discussed.
The proposition's been made, the amendment's been made, and that's it, it's been voted on.
It's a shame that we proposed and voted before we had the opportunity of discussing all the other things that we
That
may
We did have the
Yeah.
opportunity,
But
but
that's-
nobody proposed that
But
part.
the chairman did go to a second vote to make sure it was absolutely clear that there was a majority in favour of the deferral for the reason given. So I don't think we can...
Okay, I'm moving on now. Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Next application is in Daventry, to the 0409.
Thanks, Chairman. The application site just sits outside the village of the site benefits from prior approval granted under Class Q for conversion of the agricultural building to a dwelling. That's the provisions under the General Community Development Order that allow for such buildings to be converted from agricultural use to dwelling on the basis that they're capable of conversion without unnecessary further alterations, etc., etc., etc. Now that the applicant has secured that approval, they've come to look at it and have decided that they need to rebuild the building to afford further accommodation and deal with the condition of the building. To be fair, the alterations aren't significantly different, as you'll see from the report. We're not arguing that they're significantly different from what's proposed. It's slightly bigger in terms of height, and slight alterations and variations. But what we are saying is that because they haven't implemented the benefits that are accrued under the community development rights, we have to judge this application on its planning merits and against the development plan. And what we say is that the site lies in the countryside, and as the development under the PD rights has not been implemented, very special provisions apply to allowing residential development in the open countryside, and these aren't met. And accordingly, we're recommending the application be refused, Chairman. That said, clearly the existing permission under the PD rights is a material consideration. We choose not to give it sufficient weight to outweigh the provisions of the development plan. Members are entitled to take a different view. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you. Two speakers, Mr Johnson from the Parish Council for a start.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Peter Johnson. I'm one of the parish councillors who actually made a slight visit to this site to see the place at first hand. And in my view, along with most of the other councillors in Daventry, is that the present buildings are in a very poor state of repair. They really need removal or serious refurbishment. Any house, or any dwelling rather, in our opinion, would be an improvement. The only reason, as I say, which I think says the only reason to come to this committee is an increase in height of 30 centimetres. Otherwise it would have been a community development application. We on the Daventry Parish Council wholeheartedly support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr Curry is the owner.
My colleague Philip will address you this evening, Mr Chairman.
Okay, well we won't have your wonderful words then, Mr Curry.
You have my colleagues with you.
I have your colleagues' wonderful words, yeah.
Mr Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, thank you for allowing me to address you this evening as an agent on behalf of the applicant. Firstly, we accept that single dwellings in the open countryside wouldn't usually be permitted. However, as mentioned in your officer's report, the barn already has the benefit of consent for conversion under a prior approval application which was granted in November 2017. The main reason for this application is that since the initial approval, the applicant's family, who are local and have owned the land for many years, has grown, and the conversion permitted would now benefit from an increase in number of bedrooms for the growing family who are keen to remain in the village. As we were developing the scheme for the first application, we explored the possibility of inserting a first floor. However, this wasn't possible due to the requirement to keep the existing structure, including the metal trusses which would restrict headroom at the first floor. By allowing the barn to be demolished and reconstructed on the same footprint using more modern methods of construction, a modest increase of 350mm in height would allow the insertion of a first floor, creating the bedroom space required. Rebuilding the barn from scratch also means that a more traditional appearance can be achieved because the existing structural frame is no longer required. The site is fairly prominent as approaching Daventry from the south, and we believe the use of local stone and timber cladding will be more appropriate and blend into landscape better. In conclusion, this application only really relates to the external appearance of the dwelling. If approval is granted this evening, the applicant will still be constructing the previously approved scheme. However, the small adjustments will make the insertion of the first floor and the use of more traditional materials a feasible option. In our view, would produce a better outcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Two local members, one on the committee and one not on the committee. The one on the committee goes first. Councillor Frost.
I spoke to Councillor Guildford before the meeting. I'm happy to refer to.
Okay. Councillor Guildford.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak. DDC accepts that the site already benefits from consent for residential use in its report, and Officer has just accepted it's not a material difference. DDC also accepts the design of the proposed dwelling would not be of significant detriment to the visual amenity of the area, quoting from the report. The local voice of the Parish Council has confirmed support of the application. We have before us a report recommending refusal. I would ask for consistency. We have an earlier application where the report states the proposal would conflict with the development plan and with no other material considerations indicating otherwise. It is the officer's view that the application should not be supported. As I said earlier, the site already has approval for residential build. So the consistency here is we have used R1 in the first application to enable build and quoting it here to prevent build in the same village. There's not a material difference. As a district councillor, I admit I'm not on the planning, I am confused by the inconsistencies of the two applications. We've heard valid reasons and planning reasons why this should be permitted from the Parish Council and from the applicant. The build will go ahead, as I understand just now, with the two, but to make it more sustainable, to encourage families within the village, would it not be better to permit this small amendment to 3? Therefore, I ask the committee to listen to the arguments that have been put before them and look for approving this application.
Thank you, Councillor Guildford. Councillor Irving Swift and Councillor Organ.
I'm sorry to hear Miss Councillor Guildford, because the planning application was on PD development, and if we accept that planning application, it's not because of R1, it's because it was PD, and therefore, if they want that kind of application, it should be set of exception, and it's not now paragraph 55, but it's paragraph 79.
Correct.
So if they want that application, they have to go through paragraph 79 and not on PD. So I will propose that we go with officer advice.
Thank you. Do you have a second? Councillor Chalk, I'll take you because I've got you down to speak next anyway.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, well, Councillor Irving Swift has said most of what I wanted to say. The previous approval was granted under the permitted development rights for the conversion of a building, which is not a residential build, it's a conversion. And we have to keep that in mind. Personally, I'm surprised that it got that position because it doesn't look as though it's capable of conversion, but that's just an aside, really. If they wish to apply for a building other than the permitted development, then it's been said they must apply and they must justify that application against policy R1, which would act against it. One possible way of doing that is with paragraph 79, but that's my position. That's why I want to second it, Chairman. I agree with the officer's advice that this is the information given doesn't support the application in its current form.
Councillor Organ.
I actually disagree, but I think we should just go for a vote. So I'll withdraw my comments unless we win, and then I can speak.
Councillor Ritchie.
I wonder if the officers could just clarify whether I'm correct in thinking permitted development rights are there for the conversion of barns, because there's a sense that barns are a feature of the rural landscape, and conversion is a way of actually protecting them when they have perhaps lost their agricultural use because perhaps technology or other things have actually moved on. Is that not the logic behind having the permitted development for the conversion of a barn?
Through you, Chairman, I don't know what the civil servants had in mind and why talking about all I can say to you is that it has created a headache for us in terms of, yeah, I'm sure when you're living in London and thinking of nice weekends in the Cotswolds, living in a stone-built barn, that's probably what they had in mind. The actual facts and reality is that it's an agricultural building, and any agricultural building of whatever material can be converted. So we get the whole range from brick-built barns to portal-frame barns. The issue is whether or not they're reasonably sort of capable of conversion. The fact is that this council gave permission for the conversion of that building under those rights. That's that. They can choose to implement that, which is fine. What they've said tonight is that in the course of doing that, they decided, oh, the family's got bigger, we need something bigger, which clearly means the building doesn't meet their needs. That's not to say they can't convert the building. They said they can convert the building. If they convert the building, implement it, there's nothing to stop them coming back at a future date and seeking planning permission for extensions, etc. But the difference is that what you can do under PD rights is different from when you're applying for planning permission. Planning permission, the starting point is the development plan, unless other material considerations. Now you're perfectly entitled to say, well, the other material considerations are the prior approval, and we give that more weight over our development plan. Or you're entitled to say, well, no, what you can do under the permitted development rights is what you can do, implement that. We don't want to see conflict with our development plan. That's your decision. Our recommendation is that in this particular case, that as a material consideration doesn't outweigh the conflict with the development plan.
I mean, thank you for that. And I'm of course surprised that our officers don't understand, what it is that the ministers think about.
Sensible servants, Chairman.
But given that it seems reasonable speculation, I recall that about a year ago, as a result of a discussion within this committee, the council sent a letter to the Secretary of State protesting against the looseness of the regulations that allow any old building somehow to be in the countryside to be converted as a way of actually getting around normal planning restrictions. And all I can say is that while looking at the two pictures on the screen at the moment, I could vividly imagine that the one for November, if you go where the two are grouped together, the previous screen, the top one, you could imagine that yes, it might have been a barn at one stage. I see no real resemblance between the bottom one and being a barn. That strikes me as simply a new house, and I'm voting against this. Well, I'm voting with the officers.
Thank you. Right, if nobody else wishes,
So I will say something because maybe I can speak. I agree. This is semantics to me, to be honest, but there is an important principle at the base of it. Bear in mind that the 2018 proposal could eventually be achieved anyway, but it would just take longer to get there. Is this not about common sense? And look at what we're. It's not that great difference. And is it really? The parish support it. People are going to have a new home there. So why not just in this case allow the previous decision to outweigh the development, the objections now? So I'll be voting against the officers, and hope my colleagues will see just common sense in this particular case, although I do understand the important principle that underlines why officers refused it.
Thank you. Right, nobody else wishes to speak. We have a proposal that the application be refused, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those against?
It's not looking good, is it?
You can always tell me next, please. Thank you, Ken. The The application is refused. Next application is 0535 in Colashby.
Thanks, Chairman. I'll appoint members to the late representations and Mr. Crime Prevention Design Advisor. I was pleased to note the changes to the layout address or concerns. Those members who've been around for a while, this site's been long effectively allocated for a roadside service facility, and the policies allow for development there. Although the supporting text envisages overnight accommodation as well as drive-through, petrol filling station and HGV parking, the policy does not require it. That said, the existing approval allows for basically 2 drive-throughs, petrol filling station, HGV parking and a hotel. The application before you tonight is solely dealing with the hotel part of the site, and the applicants wish to substitute that for a further drive-through. In our view, it doesn't conflict with policy and has some benefits in terms of resulting in a much lower building than previously. And although it results in 3 drive-throughs, it's still effectively compliant with policy. And accordingly, we're recommending the application be approved. Can you just go back to the layout? Yeah, the concerns of the Crime Prevention Design Advisor was that there was concern about the ability to drive into the HGV area from the site. The layout has been amended to avoid that, so you see that sort of dog leg to avoid it, so that the HGV element will still be secured by fencing, etc. And landscaping, and there is a crime prevention design brief that accompanies this layout, which again has been approved effectively by the Crime Prevention Design Advisor. So basically we're recommending the application be approved, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emersworth.
You have a...
There's no local member.
Yes, yes.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
yes, there is. And I'm over that, yes.
There is a local member, but I should have recognised that.
Yeah.
Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as a local member, this is one of the 8 parishes I represent.
Don't rub it in.
The parish councils of both Thornby and Cold Ashby wished to take this opportunity to re-express their concern with the possibility of this development leading to noise pollution, light pollution, litter and local traffic. Now, I'm not going to raise the issue of HGV traffic through Cold Ashby High Street, Main Street. That's not relevant to this application. The concern here is that a hotel is probably a lot quieter at night than a drive-through food outlet, and therefore there is a possibility of extra noise. I know that we can condition these and police them through the environmental health system. The light pollution, yes, we're looking for a lighting plan which eliminates that as far as possible, and that is technically possible these days. The traffic, well, they're worried that, and this is associated with the litter, that people will come off the A14 into this service area, drive through and buy a burger in a box, come out and down the A50, which they renamed the 5199 in order to avoid spending money on it, towards Cold Ashby and Thornby, finish their burger, toss the box out of the car window and then go back onto the A14 and M6. That's their worry. However, it's my view that we can't use that to refuse the application, because it's the principle of this commercial development on this site is already well established, and so, alarmingly, Chairman, I wish to propose that we go with officer's advice and approve this application.
Thank you, Councillor Chan. Entertained as always. Do you have a second? Councillor Eden, I think. I'll let Councillor Eden have this one.
As a county councillor for Coldashby, I would like just to, and my fellow councillor, Councillor Chandler, spoke exactly why the two villages were a bit worried. But now I would like, because that bothered me, page 74, it is the paragraph, the last paragraph before the last one, in penultimate. It said, it is noted that there is anecdotal evidence about existing problems, particularly through Coldashby. It's not anecdotal.
Right.
And so I would like that to be redacted, because that cannot carry on. Coldashby has 1,000, it's at 10,000 a week of traffic through the village. So they are a great village, and they are, in my old division, they suffer the most for right traffic with more than 7.5 ton traffic, because we know there is a speed, there is a limit, but unfortunately it's never enforced. So I would like, if it's possible, that we stop to say the anecdotal, but otherwise I agree with my colleagues that on planning we will have amendments or law to deal with if the issue of noise and light pollution impact on Coldashby.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, officers would have to use the term anecdotal when people are saying that's their concern, and we've heard about that verbally, unless somebody submitted some piece of research or evidence to the planning officer during the course of considering the application, then they can only say it's anecdotal.
May I say, maybe Coldashby and Swansby didn't feel the need, because there is, with the chief exec, there is a forum who debate exactly that issue. So maybe they didn't feel the need to raise that issue here on planning, because there is a forum to discuss the issue, and that is led to the...
I mean, through you, Chairman, that's probably a learning point for any person making a representation on a planning application. Don't assume somebody knows something. If you've got some evidence to back up your point, submit it. That's all I would say to that. But I think they can only refer to it as anecdotal if it's just something that's been reported to them word of mouth.
I can say to you, at 6:15 yesterday morning, when I was going on to the A14, which I've done for the last 20 years, 25 years, I go through Coldashby, I was one of 13 cars.
Yeah.
Well, I was a van, a 3.5-ton van, but I was one of 13 vehicles going one way, and the queue coming the other way must have been just as bad at that time in the morning. And it's gone from a sleepy village to not a sleepy village, most definitely, which I'm sure the local member knows. Anyway, we have a proposition that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. The application is approved.
Chair, on a personal planning issue, can we make arrangements that the underground car park is not locked at 8:30?
Yes, through you, Chairman, the usual rule is that the car park entrance is locked at a given time, at the normal time that the council office is closed. And they're supposed to leave the exit open so we can all get out. But if there's any issue, the caretaker doesn't, is here with the keys. It depends who's on. Depends who's on. Normally you can just get straight out, but if there's an issue.
So you won't have to walk home.
Yeah, to be fair, that's not planning reason to keep it open to them.
Can we defer?
Just to help you.
I can't.
Sorry, Councillor James, can we defer that decision? It's an attempt to.
Oh, it's wonderful humour. Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, just to help out, just parking in the Abbey retail, it's just a little bit easier and closer.
Anyway, next application is in Ween, it's 0604.
Thanks, Chairman. For those who don't know, this is a closed church at Wheaton. It's sort of sandwiched between the canal and the railway line. It's actually quite a beautiful place, quite idyllic. Basically, the District Council has been approached and has proposed to carry out repairs involving repairs and replacement to the walls. As the building's a listed building, this requires planning permission, hence the application before you tonight. No objections. You'll see from the late representations, we the Parish Council are supportive of the proposal, raise no objections. All in all, it will lead to the repair of what is a nice site and hopefully enhance that part of the village. Thanks, Chairman.
Okay. You realise what it's only on because it's a D&C application. Councillor Owen-Smith?
I propose that to go with officer advice.
Second. Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Wentworth. Sorry I didn't get to you, but I'm sure you agree. All those in favour, please show. I'm sure there'll be an early case as well.
Yes.
You down. Right, thank you. That's for both applications. Well, we only voted on one, sorry. There are two applications here. There's the listed building and the ordinary one, isn't there?
Again, Chairman, this is as before, I refer you to the comments I made earlier.
0605. Councillor Owen-Smith, you're proposing?
That we accept the list.
You're seconding this time. Right. All those in favour of approving this one? Thank you. I should have took them both together, it would have been quicker. Next application is in Chapel Brampton, 0631.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. You've all been wondering what I've been doing sitting here all night.
Mr. Surtsfield, we never want that.
Just to do this one. And to watch the rest of it. Yeah, this is an application for an extension to a house in Great Close, which I think is actually a great name for a road. But anyway, it's in Chapel Brampton. And the difficulty really is that, as you see there in the photo, the adjoining neighbour's house is one of those ones that's been built gable end onto the road, so they tend to have dormers at first floor level inside. And there's concern that the side extension part of this, which is going to go first floor over the existing garage, is going to be two players looking out right in the neighbourly. Now, we've taken photos and obviously we've taken a view, which is that it's just about okay really within limits. I mean, there are some photos taken from in the space which I think help you decide. These are the windows we're talking about. There's a bedroom window upstairs. There you see, and there's some secondary high-level windows in the side, like that. And then obviously the proposal is to go up over what you see is the white fascia board there. This is taken from the upstairs window. And this is showing the garage roof now, which would obviously be built on. So when you see the elevations, I think we showed the elevations, that wall is practically going to come a lot closer to the window. But there are some photos showing in the actual space, I think, down between the dwellings, and I think that's the best place to look at it really and get a feel for it. Have you? Keep going. There was one that was taken, there you go, it's that one. So that's showing you the actual kind of distance. Bearing in mind the dormer is set back, the wall, the roof slope of this wall set back, and obviously the wall will go up on top of where the white fascia board is here. There is going to be quite a considerable distance still between there and the neighbour's window. So that's effectively what we think is acceptable on site. It won't block all of the window anyway, as you saw from the photo. Part of the window will still be visible despite the extension there. But that is the nub of the issue really. So did you see the photo? Yeah, the photo, that's the photo in the space, and then the other one is obviously the photo from the window really, which I think are the two crucial ones, not so much that one, which is the secondary window, but that one, which is the first floor window. I mean, you can't actually see, to be fair, you can't actually see the edge of the garage roof there, because it's below the level of the windowsill. So that's kind of it's going to be closer than the windowsill, if you like, that photo. But when you see it like that, it does look like a huge gap there. unfortunately, on all the pictures I've got of it, including Google Earth, it's taken in summer, so that tree's in the way. Because it would be nice to see it really without the tree in the way, but all we've got to say on the office is taken in closer reading. Yeah. Yeah, that's it really, Chairman. I can't say any more. You see what you see, you feel what you feel, really. It's one of those ones.
Did you
Just
say that's
subjective.
the only window in
That's
that
a bedroom, yeah. The other one is a secondary window, to be fair. So I'm less bothered about that window.
Okay, there is no local member this time. Councillor Frost.
Thank you.
And Councillor Evans.
It's, yes, we can say with that photograph thing. It's when you say considerable distance, are we talking about the same thing here? Are we talking about the distance between, in this photograph, say the white wood on the right hand side above the, we were, and we're talking about the distance in that, and we're talking about the
the dormer which you set behind this one. Yeah, you can't.
Sorry, I took the extension to be above that flat roof. That's all.
Yes, it is, yeah. But the distance across is going to the door window, which is set back into the roof.
Okay, so, all right, so, yeah, at its smallest point, it would be, on my calculations, about 3 metres.
It said 4 here.
It says it's 4, is it okay?
It says 4 here in the report.
And I take your point, when you get a bit higher up, you're probably talking 6 metres?
Well, the dormer window obviously is flat, isn't it? So to be fair, the glass window there is flat, and then the wall will come out. But yeah, you'll have a similar type appearance here as you've got with this wall, but it's going to come a lot closer, as I say, probably below what you see there is the windowsill there. It's going to be, the starting point is going to be a lot closer to this window. Obviously it'll be a lot higher, so a lot of that light will be blocked out. But it won't come any further forward, really, than what you've got there. Because all they're going to do over the garage at the front there is put a sloping roof on. So you'll still have this space here, if you like, at the front, when the walls come up to it. You'll still have some white daylight space at the front there.
But this will come closer.
Yeah, that wall will come closer. But as I say, it won't go beyond the existing wall there, so you'll still have that daylight space there.
Daylight.
Yeah. You do that with a mouse, that
am
amount of space. That amount of space that I'm doing one hand will still be there.
Okay.
That's quite hot.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Well, I'm going to speakers now then. Councillor Evans is the first one, followed by Councillor Parker.
Sorry, I thought you said somebody else. Yeah, I don't have any problems with this. I must admit there's more on the website to look at than you've got here, and if anything they were clearer.
Oh, right.
But the 2 windows that will be affected in the house next door, they say the side window that will be affected. They might lose a little bit of light out of that, but then they've got the big window at the front, which means that the light will still come in.
The lower one is
From what I can make out, I think that's the way the sun goes round. The dormer up there, the extension to next door will affect it a little bit, but because that house is a bit further forward than the one that wants the extension, it means that 3/4 or more of that window will see the sunshine all the time. And looking at the pictures of the space there is between the 2 houses, I don't have a problem, so I propose to go in the officer's advice.
Thank you. Is that a proposal?
Yes.
Right, do you have a seconder? Councillor Chandler, do you wish to speak now or?
No, nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay. Councillor Parker next.
Yeah. I'd actually go against officer's advice. I've got no problems with the single-storey rear. That seems to be fine. But that first floor, to me, that's completely overbearing on the neighbour. And there has got to be lots of light, just has to be, because it's moving that distance forward into a dormer. So it's not moving as what would normally happen with detached houses, wall to wall, where there isn't any windows, which is what you get now. That's a dormer, so I would actually say that's completely overbearing on the neighbour. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wesley?
Just been said, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Owen-Swift?
Yes, am I understanding that the window on the dormer window, that is a secondary window in that room?
The dormer one isn't. The dormer one upstairs is the main window to the room, which is the bedroom. That's my understanding. That is the main window.
And
It's the lower one that's the secondary window to the downstairs room.
so could I have a supplementary question? Is that under planning law, that will be a restricted light? They will have restricted light on the main bedroom.
Sorry?
According to planning law, don't we have guidance of 22 meters?
Well, we do between, I think, I mean, in this situation, I suppose we're talking blank gable wall to window. We would normally say about 12-ish, 10, 11, 12 metres,
So we are not
So you're not,
there.
no, you're not within that mark.
And we are going to obscure 2/3 of the window.
Yeah, probably that's fair enough.
So I think on balance that is maybe not reasonable, but that is the way I am seeing it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor, sorry, I haven't got you on my list.
No, but I've been pondering. I mean, the question that Councillor Swift has just raised was the one that was going through my mind about what are the, the grounds that we would have for saying no. It strikes me that if you build a house, this chalet type house, where the windows come out of the roof in that manner, you'd also only put it there if you felt that by looking out the window there was something good that you would see. I just feel that if the applicant's house had been built originally with the side extension that we're now discussing, there's no way that they would have built the house next door with a window just looking at it. And it strikes me as rather unfair on the people next door. It's not just the view, it is the value of the house, it is everything else that is going to be affected by having, instead of looking out, clearly, I wouldn't want to overstate it. Clearly there are things that they can look out at and light that comes in, but there will be much more looking at somebody else's wall than the view that they might have had in the past. And I just feel that if there were, that if there were grounds for saying to the people who are, to the applicant, look, if you need more space, why did you do what most other people would do and buy a bigger house?
Thank you. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Right. No one is.
We need a proposition to refuse then and a reason.
Now I need a proposition the other way.
I mean, obviously we need a reason, so I guess it's going to be something like it's overbearing and unneighbourly. Lots of light, etc.
So who wants to propose it?
But if you read the report, it's not.
I know, but I'm just saying.
I think it's subjective.
Councillor Olga, you're proposing it, who's seconding it? The Vice Chairman seconded it, because his hand went up first. Councillor Parker. Right, all those in favour of that refusal, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Those against? The application is refused for the given reason. And last, but not least, is an application Abbey South 0791.
Thanks, Chairman. Straightforward application. That's the proposed window at the top, which will replace a window that's pretty rotten and a small casement window. Could be replaced by a sash window, timber built, flush fitting, etc., etc. It is in the conservation area. It's not a listed building. And officers think of the enhancement of conservation area accordingly recommending the application to be approved. Chair.
Thank you. Two members on the committee. Councillor Eden. It's in your ward.
It is.
Do you want to make any comments?
Yeah. I wouldn't mind.
Do you want me to go first, Jan? You normally ask me to.
No, I mean, I haven't had a chance to say much tonight, so I'll say it now. Yes, I approve of this. Shoe Street, the shops down there are trying very hard to improve the area. And the windows in this, if they're put back to how they were before, will help towards the improvements they're doing down there. I 100% approve of it. So I'd like those who follow office advice for this.
Thank you. Councillor Wesley?
Yeah, I'm seconding that. There's no reason to say no to this.
Right. Both local ward members support it. Proposed and second. All those in agreement, please show. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Well, that concludes the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.